Hey there. Are you ready for the second part? This is the second part of what is Kundalini Yoga? What is that stuff that we feel as energy throughout us? You know, another word for it is life energy. Okay? That's another word for it is chai. Chi. Okay? Not chai. Chai is what we drink. So if you're ready to take a look at other forms of and other ways of seeing Kundalini energy, well, here we go. We're going to start with some definitions here. So let's get right to it. All right. Prana. What is prana? It comes in on your breath, but it's not just some component of oxygen or nitrogen that makes up air. It's more subtle than most other things that make up air. So it's at this point, it's still not registering on scientific machines, okay? But you can tell when you've got it and when you don't. It feeds the energy system, okay? That would be one reason why we do our practice early in the morning, 2.5 hours before the sun comes up, because more prana is available at that time because of the angle of the energy that's hitting the earth. It's coming in at a 60-degree angle, and the spin of the earth helps it come in. So the next definition is apana. And apana is energy that flows out of the body. It's when cells are repairing themselves, and when you have toxins that need to be expelled from the body, you actually can expel more by the breath that you do than you can by sweating. Okay, and everybody knows sweating is one way of expelling toxins too. And doing a chant that changes your blood chemistry can also send things out through your glands. Okay, and that's apana, leaving your body. The next definition is vayus. What are the vayus? Well, if you've ever done any acupuncture, you've seen the charts on the wall that show the path of the meridians. And vayus are channels for prana and apana. So it's very similar to what we think of as meridians. And oftentimes they follow the path of major arteries or bones too, but it has its own path. And we manipulate these flows with the practice of Kundalini Yoga. So when you find yourself, for instance, we can regulate it with the way we do our breath. If you found it yourself in a frightening place, and you've noticed that your breath was shortening up, really shallow and really, like, or you were holding your breath, then once that registers that you're doing that, you shift the breath and go to your belly, and you may want to count. Like, inhale 5 or 6 and exhale 5 or 6 to start with. That's one place to start. And then your brain will follow the breath, and your blood chemistry changes, and you shift. So a Kriya is the combination of movement, breath, eye focus, and sound current for a specific effect. Okay? Just like I was describing, for the effect of not being fearful anymore. Once you change the way your breath is going, the way your vayus are being used, then it it changes the whole mindset. So it's a very specific effect. We'll go to the next set of definitions. Breath of fire. So this is just to explain a few of the breaths that we use in Kundalini Yoga to work with this energy. Breath of fire is to just to have you experience it. It's kind of like a real simple way of describing it. It's like a panting dog. Dogs do breath of fire, but they do it through their mouth. So if you put one hand on your belly, right, one hand on your chest, and you be your best friend, right, and then close your mouth, feel what your belly's doing, and close your mouth and do it through the nose. What you're doing is dumping carbon dioxide with breath of fire. And that's one way of increasing the Kundalini energy. Very simple way. And you can do it while you're doing other body movements with the Kriya. So what happens when you dump carbon dioxide, you make oxygen available to the brain. So can you count the many ways that oxygen would be useful, having more access to it in the brain? You know that one of the things that's useful about that is the way it helps the immune system. Okay? So one of the other breaths we use is long, deep breathing. And an example of that might be if you were counting as you inhale and you count to 10. As you expand your belly and your chest up to the collarbones, and then exhale, counting to 10. Bringing the belly in last. And then keep going. Keep going. Inhale again. And exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Long, deep breathing has a way of triggering the parasympathetic nervous system, so it helps to make you relax. The sound current is another thing that we use often. I'm using a tone right now that is a D tone, and there's a C tone. We use music extensively and sound extensively in Kundalini Yoga to work with the chakras. A C tone is the root chakra, chakra number 1, at the very bottom of the spine. And when it's firing properly, you can feel confident and relaxed. And when it's out of sync, you're feeling pretty fearful. So not only do we use sounds that are coming from instruments, but also the sound of our voice. We use primal sound phonemes that produce an effect, like ah, e, wa, hey, gu, ru, wa, hey, because of the way the tongue strikes the roof of the mouth and hits those meridian points in the roof of the mouth. It triggers things in the brain. So all of these things, it's quite a science. All of these things are about harnessing and using that Kundalini energy that we all have as it comes up, okay? Always continually bringing it up, okay? So we'll go on to the next picture here. So mantra, we were just talking about phonemes like wa, and phonemes are the very smallest component of a language that makes a sound. Mantras are made up of these phonemes. And an example of that would be like if you were working with the first chakra with the sound of C, we would use something like ek onkar. And then inhale, Sat Nam. Sitting. Inhale again. Wa Hey Guru. This is an example of a mantra that works with the first chakra. And we usually chant it around 7 minutes. It's not too long. In certain cases, we go much longer for certain effects. And then if we were working with the second chakra and we were moving on up, then we would go to this sound. Vayanti Gayanti Jagadutapati Arakituaha Ramade Trishaguru Ituahi Guru. And then so on, we go on up the scale. Ekonkar Satanam Karta Purik Nirboneve Kaumura Rajuni Sebangur Prasaja Ad Sach Jugad Sach Chevi Sach Nanikahosi Bi Sach. That's for working with the navel point. Okay? And then we go on up to the sound of F for the heart center. Siriaka Mahaka Kamura Waheguru. And then we go on up to G. So you get the idea? We work with sound a lot. Rakinahara Puparian Guru ki peri pari Caduceus. Oh, epitialumanu nagasarian Sajanaka Sangha Bhavajalatarian. All the way up to the third eye point. Waheguru, 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 Waheguru. And this is for being more intuitive. Working with the third eye point is working with the pituitary gland. So you can see just a little bit about what we do, and it has a way of channeling Kundalini energy, so it's very usable So moving on to the next definition, the sympathetic nervous system. What is that? Sympathetic nervous system is the one that jumps into action, right? Your fight or flight. And doing these mantras really help with shifting it into the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the next thing on our definition list, your rest and digest nervous system. Long exhales have a tendency to trigger it. And when you're chanting, you're always exhaling, right? Waheguru, 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 Wahegio. Lots of exhaling going on there, right? So sound current is just super useful in the practice of Kundalini Yoga. And going on to the next definition, what is this? Do you recognize this symbol? In modern times, it's called a Caduceus, but it was an original Kundalini symbol, the symbol of healing, right? And Kundalini Yoga does do a lot of healing, a lot of balancing and healing when you keep a regular practice. It helps you be your authentic self. So you see the snakes that are twined around this staff in the center. The center staff is this is like a symbol of the energy going up the spine, okay? The snake that would be associated with the left nostril would be the Ida, and it makes a 3.5 cycle spin, right? The one associated with the right nostril, coming out at the right nostril, would be the Pingala, okay? Which ramps your energy up. When you're breathing out of that right nostril, you're activating. When you're breathing out of that left nostril, you're calming things down, okay? And the central one is the Sushumna, where the powerful energy flows happen. So all of that is associated with raising the Kundalini energy. All right. I wanted to say a word about vagal tone, actually, before we go on to this next one, and what vagal tone is. Your vagus nerve is right in the sternum, right in here. And it originates out of the back of the brain and comes down each side of your neck, right? And it goes behind the heart and spreads out and goes to every major organ, okay? And it's what helps us trigger and get the fight or flight nervous system going, or to channel it back down, okay? And vagal tone is how well you can shift gears between ramping up and calming down. And it can be associated with all kinds of things. With, you know, if, say for instance, you're in traffic and you have to slam on your brakes because someone's stopping in front of you, and you get really angry about it, then your fight or flight's in full motion, right? Here you go. And if your vagal tone is working well, then you'll be able to just immediately go to left nostril breathing. Count to 10 on the exhale, count to 10 on the inhale, and shift out of it, okay? Including the anger, okay? So it takes some practice. And working with the chakras is another way of making that happen too. We raise our frequency from the bottom chakra up to the top, and so many of our kriyas are having us work those locks, right? The root lock, triggering the bottom chakra and sending energy up through the second and the third, and then the navel, the abdominal lock, sending energy up from the third to the fourth and fifth, right? And then the neck lock, Jalandhara Bandh, moving up through the rest of the chakras, up to stimulate the pituitary gland. So we can keep that energy up as long as possible. So we work with the chakras in a very real way. And when you've practiced a while, you'll know what chakra combinations are being triggered and what's happening there. So working on that vagal tone is a good thing. So kriyas are how we do it. Kriyas are how we channel that energy and put it where we want to put it and rein it in and ramp it up and use it in a way that's useful to us as householders. The angles of your body and the rate of breath determines what effects you'll have on your nervous system. Kundalini Yoga is called the yoga of awareness. It's a dynamic, powerful tool. And in these times, everyone needs some sort of practice. So this is a practice that's pretty accessible for someone who has a family and is working a job and just wants to spend small amounts of time on getting their practice going and getting it together. In Kundalini Yoga, we harness the mental, physical, and nervous energies of the body and put them under the domain of the will, which is the instrument of the soul. This technology precisely and consciously combines with breath, mudra, eye focus, mantra, body locks, and posture to balance the glandular system and strengthen the nervous system and expand the lung capacity, purifying the blood, and it brings balance to body, mind, and soul. In Kundalini Yoga, the most important thing is your experience. It goes right to your heart. No words can replace your experience. Talking about it won't get you there. You have to actually do it to make it happen. All right, so we're about to move on to the next segment here, and we'll just touch on a few Kundalini experiences, and the next segment will actually have a lot more, okay? So this is part 2 of our Kundalini experience on what is Kundalini energy. And one of the common things that happens to people is a sudden rush of energy as the chakras open. Okay? You know, they close and open all the time. And the practice of keeping them open can make it much more regulated flow of energy. But when they're not being regulated and you move in a certain way, or you do a certain activity that ramps things up that is not channeled, sometimes there's just a gigantic rush of energy and you're up all night and it's like manic. and if you're not doing some kind of breath work to bring it back down, it just has to run its course. But and this is common that it happens, especially with us not having regular hours, you know, staying up on the computer too long at night and not having regular sleep patterns. It can be pretty erratic. So it can be at random hours of day or night, and it's definitely disorienting. So learning how to manage this kind of energy is pretty useful. So we'll touch on more of these kinds of experiences in the next segment, okay? And I hope you had fun exploring this energy, and I hope to talk to you more later, okay? All right, you take care. See you on the next one.